welcome to this episode of Health WISE-360, a creation of Clarissa Burt, founder of In the Limelight Media. I'm your show host, Chrissy Cordingley, and you'll be able to see this interview on In the Limelight TV, which is distributed on Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, and 100 other smart TV apps. The audio version of this interview can be heard anywhere you get your podcasts. And today I'm super excited. I'm interviewing the one and only Pitz Quattrone, innovative player, builder, inspiring teacher of the ancient native Australian instrument, the didgeridoo. Since the early 1990s, Pitz has honed his chops and credentials and become the go-to guy for the didgeridoo. He's brought the healthy pleasures of Didge playing to thousands of kids and adults worldwide. Pitz writes songs from tragic to comic, is a dynamic frontman, and endears audience with his diverse musical performances. He truly is one of a kind. So welcome to the show, Didge. I almost called you Didge, sorry, Pitz.
Thanks, Chrissy. It's great to be with you today. Thanks for the invitation.
We're so excited to learn about this. So let's just start with, what is a didgeridoo? I mean, I think a lot of people are like, oh, that's that noise in the Survivor theme, right? So
It's in there. Yeah,
yeah,
it's pretty
so
much anything having to do with Australia. You'll hear the didgeridoo underneath it.
for sure.
So,
So what is it and how is it used traditionally? Because it's a
yeah,
healing instrument, not just a musical or entertainment style of instrument, correct?
it is. And I'll start off by playing for a few seconds.
Me too.
So
Yeah, perfect.
to give your audience a chance to see and hear this thing.
That's so interesting. It's so
There's nothing like
beautiful.
it.
It's a nice like it's got a real calming vibe to it, right? The low notes. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it sure does. Well, the didgeridoo is the world's oldest musical instrument. It comes from northern Australia in an area called Arnhem Land. If you look at a map of Australia, straight dead center, go all the way up to the top, and just to the east of the city of Darwin, there's this whole big area right there. It's called Arnhem Land. That's where the didgeridoo was born. And how the Didge is used traditionally is around the fire at nighttime. There's someone either telling a story or singing a story. And then there's two or three dancers imitating the movements of what's happening in the story. And then there's one, sometimes two didgeridoo players imitating the sounds of what's happening in the story.
Interesting.
So, yeah, it's their job. They're like the sound effects team. So it's the oldest sound effects machine that I know of.
That's
And
amazing.
the
Oh,
word
sorry.
the
Go on.
word go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead. Keep going.
Okay, the word didgeridoo. First of all, it's not even an Aboriginal term. It was made up by the first Europeans who showed up in
Oh, interesting.
Australia and saw and heard this instrument for the first time. They didn't know what it was, what to call it, so they made up a name based on the sound, automatopoeia, didgeridoo.
Yeah.
Didgeridoo, didgeridoo, didgeridoo. So, depending on where you are in the country, the Didge has a few different traditional names. The one term that's accepted pretty much broadly is the word Yidaki or Yadaki, and that's spelled Yidaki, Yadaki.
Yeah.
And in some areas, Yadaki means short or small didgeridoo.
Oh, okay. That's really
Hmm.
interesting. Is it becoming more common now to use the traditional names than the European names, or is it still really used as a didgeridoo?
Well, I think both are accepted. I mean, you can ask different folks in the Aboriginal community, and you'll get different
Good
answers on
answers.
that. My Aboriginal buds are cool with calling it the didgeridoo or Didge
Mhm.
for short. So, but yeah, it's accepted.
That's awesome. Good. So how did you become involved with this beautiful instrument? What drew you to it, and where did you first hear one?
Hmm. Well, I've always liked strange, interesting, wacky sounds. And so going back to grade school, I was always the kid in the back of the room making all the weird sounds, trying to get people to laugh, the class clown. That was me. And then fast forward to, I don't know, 20 years later, it was in the 80s when the Crocodile Dundee movies came out. And
Mhm.
so you can hear the Didge underneath pretty much a lot of the scenes in So I first heard it, I was like, oh man, what is that sound? It is so cool. So I
Mhm.
finally figured out what it was. And then a few years later, my wife Amy got me a didgeridoo for Christmas. It was the Christmas of 1993. And there was the internet really wasn't totally happening at that point, but she got a hold of a world music instrument catalog, a mail order catalog, real print, hard copy,
Oh,
everything.
wow, since I've seen one of
And
those.
so she found a didgeridoo in there,
So cool.
and she ordered it for me. And it was it was a more of a novelty didge. It was about 3 feet long, and they should be a little bit longer for the get to get the correct tone, but it was playable. And the extra cool thing was it came with an instructional cassette.
Oh,
So
yeah.
and that was really helpful. The guy did a great job explaining things. I couldn't really see what he was doing, so there was no YouTube then where I can just dial up the video. But that's how I got my start with the instructional cassette.
That's amazing. So is it like, so I've played woodwinds and I played brass before in life. Like, do you play other instruments? Has music been a part of your thing? And is it like learning a new embouchure of the mouth?
Yes to everything.
Okay, yeah.
um, I've always music grabbed me when I was 3 years old in 1965 when I saw my uncle jumping around in his underwear playing air guitar to the Rolling Stones. So that blew my mind, and I still remember it. So I was like, wow, I want to be part of that and do that for people and
Yeah.
make them feel good. So, but so later, what was the question again?
Is it like, was it easy to learn, or is it
Ah,
like an embouchure? Could you relate it to something else that you were playing?
yeah, I've always played drums and percussion,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I don't have a brass or woodwind background. So the embouchure is it's kind of tricky. It's not real tight and pressured like a trumpet player would do. It's almost like what a tuba player would do or a trombone player with the slide all the way extended. It's a really loose and wide
Your
open.
lips are like vibrating inside the
They're actually flapping
Oh,
inside.
interesting. Yeah. Yep.
So that gives you eventually you'll get the solid, nice drone foundation, and that is your foundation. Once you nail the drone in one breath, you don't have to do the breathing thing yet. In one breath, you get that drone, and then you can start adding all kinds of really cool sound effects with your tongue by bending the pitch with your
Hmm.
tongue. You can do rhythms with your tongue, and you can also bring in your voice over top of the drone to
Yes, that
harmonize
would go
or
well. Yeah.
sing unison with that drone.
Hmm. So interesting. It's really
Mhm.
interesting. So, what are the health benefits of playing the didgeridoo?
Well, there's a lot of health benefits. Number one, in order to get that drone I was talking about, you
Yeah.
must be relaxed. You got to be totally calm. You can't force it like, oh, I really, really want to play this thing. Like it's the opposite of that. It's nice and so that's the first thing. You got to relax. Your heart rate goes down, your breath rate goes down. So it automatically gets you in that mode. So that's the first thing. And then after a while, you can uh, get your get your drone happening. And a lot of people come to me and want to play a didge, and they're either sleep apnea sufferers or they're just interested in the didge. So if you're getting one breath in the beginning, I tell my students first off, get that drone happening and time it, and then do in practice every day 15 20 minutes, and then the following week do that same one breath thing and time it, and every time it gets longer and longer and longer. So it immediately starts opening up the capacity of your lungs and more air coming in and more air going out. So that's a number one health benefit right there.
You also practice circular breathing, which I don't know people outside of music would understand what that is, but it's because sometimes when musicians hold really long wind notes, they think it's just they've just held their breath for so long, but there's actually a technique. Could you just share a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. And tying that in with more health
Okay.
benefits
Yeah.
is in 2005, the British Medical Journal published a study from a scientist in Switzerland who had 25 sleep apnea patients. He brought in a didgeridoo teacher and he taught them how to play. And so they played for 6 days a week, half an hour a day for 4 months. And at the end of that 4 months, their sleep apnea episodes dramatically decreased or totally went away.
Oh, amazing.
And it's been explained to me from I'm not a healthcare professional, so it's been explained to me from doctors that what happens is in the muscles in your throat when someone has sleep apnea, they kind of tend to get loose and flabby and obstruct the airway. So when you're playing didgeridoo, you're giving those muscles a workout, especially now we get to circular breathing, especially in the circular breathing, the breath transition, that really works those muscles down in here. It's like internal push-ups for those muscles. And they get back into shape, nice and strong and straight, no longer obstructing the airway so they can breathe more freely.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, and the circular breathing thing in a nutshell. So I'm playing, right? Eventually I'm going to need air for my
Air.
lungs.
Yeah.
So so what I do is I catch some air in my cheeks on its way out, and then a split second I squeeze my cheeks in to empty my mouth just like that. So I'm not actually breathing out. I'm just emptying my mouth with my cheek muscles, and that's the split second opportunity I have to breathe up my nose. So it's like this, one big circle.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll do that two or three, four times in a row while I'm playing because I have to get my capacity back up.
Yeah.
So what that allows is it that little flaps your lips for a second, keeps the music going, and then you breathe up your nose. The music is continuous, and you breathe while you play.
Hmm. I actually find it really hard. It's something I've never been able to master, so I don't know. Just
It's
we
about
like have a
cheek.
flabby larynx. I don't know.
No, it's anybody can do it, and I've
Yeah.
taught thousands of people. It's all
Oh,
about cheek muscles and timing.
yes.
And there's great exercises for both of those things to build up those cheek muscles, and then get the timing of it. And then we put it all right on the face, and then we apply it to the didgeridoo.
Yeah, that's amazing. I also kind of laughed when you talked about getting stressed, like, oh, I want to play this because that's I've always played wind instruments. Now I'm trying to play the ukulele, and I'm getting mad that it's not coming so quick. So I'm like, my hand is like a claw, and I'm like, well, that's not going to work if I'm trying to
Yeah.
fret and stuff. So, um,
Hmm.
so tell me a little bit about your personal story with the didgeridoo. We sort of learned how you found it, how you discovered it, what you love about it, but how did it actually save you?
Well, this instrument, yes, it did save me, and I owe a lot to this hollowed out tree branch. A didge is a hollowed out tree branch, termites eating out the center of a tree limb from eucalyptus branches. So, yeah, the Didge came to me at a critical time in my 20s, and it showed me a healthy lifestyle over a dark path, which I was beginning to head. And luckily, I was awake enough to realize, like, hey, this instrument is really cool, and this could be something really good for me. And so I luckily I went the didgeridoo path and not the drugs and alcohol path where I was heading down and potential criminal activity. So because I saw some of my friends go down that road and it's a dead end. So I was like, all right, cool. I don't play sports. I play this instrument. You know, sports isn't my way out. It's the didgeridoo. So I took that path, And I'm so thankful I did, because it did save me. It gave me a healthy lifestyle, and now I've been at this for a long time, and now it's given me a career
Yeah.
and a purpose. And my mission is to share this instrument with as many people as I can, to help whoever I can, maybe in situations like I was in, or they're in totally different situations. This instrument is all positive. There's nothing bad about the didgeridoo. It's
No.
all positive.
Yes. So maybe share one of your favorite workshop moments or playing moments where you really connected with the audience, or something that you felt, wow, I'm so excited that this brought me to this opportunity to participate.
Yeah. Wow.
I know there's
Okay.
lots, but yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the Didge takes me all over the world, literally. I mean, it, it's taken me to Greenland, Africa, all around the United States. So one of my favorite moments was when I was in Senegal, West Africa, with my buddy Massamba Diop, who is the talking drum master of Senegal. He's also in Baba Maul's band and the lead drummer in the Wakanda Forever Black Panther soundtrack stuff. Massamba's a big deal in the world music world, and
Mhm.
so he's a buddy of mine, and he he took me to his granddaughter's elementary school to show them the didgeridoo, and he was hanging close by so he can translate for everyone. So what I learned was, as soon as I start playing, kids love the didgeridoo. That's the thing. They love the didgeridoo, and it doesn't really matter where they're from or what language they speak. It doesn't matter. So I started playing in that classroom in Dakar, Senegal, and I start playing, wow, and the kids, everyone, they totally light up, and some of them like rush me,
Oh yeah, yeah.
they come towards me and they want to touch and grab the didge as I'm playing, because it's like a magnet, man. It's got serious power, and people who feel it, they really know it, and like they're connected to the didgeridoo, and they get, even if they never heard it before, they just feel like, wow, I love that. I don't know what it is, but I want to hold on to it.
Yes, yes, it is. It's such a natural tone, and again, those bass notes, like it's just, I don't- it's very, you feel very connected to the earth, I feel, when you listen to it,
Yeah.
which is, yeah, it's really good. So what else do you do with your didgeridoo?
Wow. So, yeah, I've been at this for a while. So I make instruments. They're available on my website. I teach lessons one-on-one, and as well as group lessons online or in person. I
Mhm.
go to schools around the world. I go to retreat centers, and I also perform my original music. I grew up in the Philadelphia area in the 60s and 70s. So that's the music I grew up with, like rock, funk, soul, Motown, psychedelic stuff, the Philadelphia sound, all those things. That's my background. I'm not an Australian guy. I grew up outside of Philly.
Mhm.
So I'm playing this ancient instrument. So I love to put it into all these different musical settings that are my background and other backgrounds. Like I went to Africa. I'm a guy I live in Vermont now for the last 25 years. So I play this ancient instrument from Australia, and I'm a Vermont guy. And then I go over to Senegal. So I'm getting this ancient instrument hopping a couple continents
Yes.
and bringing this really cool old instrument into West African music. And
Mhm.
it's fantastic. So that's one of I love putting the didge in various musical settings, and including my own, which have all those influences I mentioned. And so I like really fun, funky, cool, danceable, moving type of music. And my music is that. It's been featured on the Jimmy Fallon, The Tonight
Right.
Show, and NPR, National Public Radio here in the States, as well as the Dr. Demento legendary radio show. So, and Dr. Demento is the guy who helped out Weird Al, if you know about that.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
amazing. That's so amazing. And it just, it shows, it must feel like, wow, I'm obviously on the right path. And what a blessing it's been to be connected to this instrument, these experiences. because
Yeah.
now you're guided to share. It's just an awesome experience. Would you like to share a little about the instruments behind you? Because you've got a
Yeah,
few
sure.
different shape sizes and designs of them. Would you like to share a little bit about them?
Yeah, sure. These are some instruments I made. This one here is actually my wife decorated this
Oh,
one.
beautiful. Oh, I love the
Pretty
turtle.
much
Turtle Island.
any hollow tube can be a didgeridoo. It just has to be the right specifications. And this one started as a cardboard mailing tube.
I was gonna say, I know my son has tried to make didgeridoos out of paper towel rolls and things, but
Yeah,
interesting, yeah.
that's all this one is.
Oh,
Has a
very
great
cool.
sound for a cardboard tube.
That's wild.
Some of the wider bodied instruments,
Yeah.
the mouthpiece and the other end needs to be shrunken in the diameter so it fits your mouth while you're playing. And a lot of people use beeswax to shrink that diameter down. I'm not a big fan of the beeswax, but for this particular instrument, it's totally needed. And this one here, what I do for my mouthpieces is I just shape and form the one end of the tree branch so
Mhm.
it's a natural mouthpiece. It doesn't need to be altered in any way, and it's much easier to play. So this one, I drill mine out with a big long uh, electrician's drill bit,
Mhm.
and then I flip it around, and then I'll go in the other end to complete that tunnel.
That's amazing.
And sometimes I'll do like nice sponge painting and do a few sections. And this one is from a bamboo patch down the road from where I used to live in Pennsylvania.
Oh, cool.
And bamboo makes a good sounding didge, but it's finicky stuff. You really have to know how to handle it. And I finally figured out how to handle it and make good instruments out of it for, it took me many years. So this one I
Now that
just,
one has a bend in it as well. Does that change the sound?
yeah, well, it makes it a little bit longer. So it's going to
Yeah,
be a little bit deeper,
deeper.
bassier sounding than a straight one. And I just burned some designs into it with a blowtorch.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And this one is another thing. This one grows right around here in Vermont. It's a really toxic thing when it's alive.
Yeah.
It's called it's called cow parsnips, but it grows totally hollow, all
Oh,
in one
cool.
season. So I handle it very carefully when I harvest it after the first couple frosts. I'll go and clear it out and cut it down and bring it inside, and I don't touch it till the following spring because it has these really nasty oils like poison ivy times 10.
Oh, yeah.
But it's really fragile, so I coat it with a few coats of shellac, a little mouthpiece, and it makes a great sounding didge. So any natural hollowed out branch or stalk, I'm totally game to play with. Sometimes I make them out of sunflower stalks if the stalk is wide enough and long enough.
That's so interesting. That's really interesting. Um, so where can people find you and listen to your music and attend maybe one of your workshops or presentations?
Sure. Well, there's tons of information on my website. If you want to just hear my music, just ask your smart speaker to play Pitz Quattrone and then bang, I'm right there. But my website has that's the home base for everything. And it's just my name.com, and that's pitzquattrone.com. That's spelled PitzQuattrone, pitzquattrone.com. Or if you just Google Vermont Didgeridoo or Vermont Didge,
Yeah.
I'm going to be like the first 75 things that pop up.
I
So,
imagine you're a bit of a niche in Vermont, so.
yeah, I am. It's a small state and it's a very low population state. I mean, there's only 600,000 people in the entire state. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I'm the didgeridoo guy in Vermont, and but I'm willing to go out into the world and share this instrument with everyone. It's not just my instrument. It's not even my instrument. It's the Aboriginal people of Northern Australia. It's their instrument. I'm just a messenger and transporting this ancient instrument for all good around the world.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Are there any last thoughts or ideas you want to share with our audience before we wrap up today?
Yeah, if you want to get in touch with me, we can do lessons online. And a lot of people come to me that are sleep apnea sufferers because they're looking for an alternative. And what happened with that study, the big study a while back, it was deemed, the conclusion was that playing the didgeridoo is an effective treatment alternative. So a lot of people who don't like the CPAP mask, they come to me looking for help. And it's a commitment to play the didge. It's not like taking a pill or putting a mask on,
Mm.
but it has its serious benefits of there's first of all no insurance company involved. There's no drugs involved, and you're getting to learn to play this really cool instrument, so it has so many benefits. And that's really one of my main focuses is teaching folks how to play.
That's amazing. That's a big benefit. Sleep apnea is becoming quite prevalent. So that's amazing. So thank you so much for your time, Pitz. We'll make sure all your information's on the show notes. We just really appreciate you being on the show today.
Great. Well, thanks for having me, Chrissy. My pleasure.
Anytime.